All right, we're going to talk about the big elements of setting. And in order to do that, we're going to use an excerpt from the opening of The Hunger Games. I picked that one because I figured you're familiar with the story. If you haven't read the novel, you've probably seen the movie, or at least you know a lot about it. And so before we can get into the first element of setting, I want to read this excerpt to you so that you're familiar with it. And this is from the voice of Katniss at the very beginning of the novel. When I wake up, the other side of the bed is cold. Our part of District 12, nicknamed the Seam, is usually crawling with coal miners heading out on the morning shift at this hour. Men and women with hunched shoulders, swollen knuckles, many who have long stopped trying to scrub the coal dust out of their broken nails, the lines of their sunken faces. But today, the black cinder streets are empty. Shutters on the squat gray houses are closed, and the reaping isn't until 2. May as well sleep in, if you can. Our house is almost at the edge of the seam. I only have to pass a few gates to reach the scruffy fields called the meadow. Separating the meadow from the woods, in fact enclosing all of District 12, is a high chain-link fence topped with the barbed wire loops. In theory, it's supposed to be electrified 24 hours a day as a deterrent to the predators that live in the woods, packed of wild dogs, lone cougars, bears that used to threaten our streets. But since we're lucky to get 2 or 3 hours of electricity in the evenings, it's usually safe to touch. Even so, I always take a moment to listen carefully for the hum that means the fence is live. Right now, it's silent as stone. I flatten out my belly and slide under a stretch that's been loose for years. As soon as I'm in the trees, I retrieve a bow and sheath of arrows from a hollow log. Electrified or not, the fence has been successful at keeping flesh eaters out of District 12. Inside the woods, they roam freely, and there are added concerns like venomous snakes, rabid animals, and no real paths to follow. There's also food, if you know how to find it. Even though trespassing in the woods is illegal and poaching carries the severest of penalties, more people would risk if they had the weapons. District 12, that where you starve to death in safety, I mutter. Then I glance quickly over my shoulder. Even here, even in the middle of nowhere, you worry someone might overhear you. When I was younger, I scared my mother to death the things I would blurt out about District 12, about the people who rule our country. Panem, from the far off city called the capital. Eventually, I understood that would lead us to more trouble, so I learned to hold my tongue and do my work quietly in school. Make only polite small talk in the public market. Discuss little more than trades in the hob, which is a black market where I make most of my money. And even at home, where I am less pleasant, I avoid discussing tricky topics like the reaping or food shortages or the Hunger Games. After the reaping, everyone is supposed to celebrate, and a lot of people do, out of relief that their children have been spared for another year. But at least 2 families will pull their shutters, lock their doors, and try to figure out how they'll survive the painful weeks to come. All right, so that's the reading. So the first element we're going to look at in the Hunger Games, or in terms of setting in the Hunger Games, is the time. Okay, so we know that Katniss has just woken up. Okay, and we know that the reaping isn't until 2, so you might as well sleep in if you can. We know she doesn't sleep in. She kind of wakes up at her normal time, early morning-ish, we can assume. So it is the day. All right. Now, this is significant because it also symbolizes the start of Katniss's journey or story in the book, right? Or in the novel, because right after this scene, when she actually goes to the reaping, boom, her whole journey starts. So not only is it the start of the day in the novel, but it's symbolic or metaphorical because it's also the start of her journey, which is going to take place over 3 novels, right? Of becoming the hero and the person who really helps the rebellion exist, but also starts her journey toward the Hunger Games. All right. While it doesn't say so in this particular chapter or in this particular scene in the chapter, you might be able to infer from this, or just from seeing the movie or knowing about the Hunger Games, that this place takes place in the future in North America or the United States area after a big rebellion and revolution happened in this country and around this part of the world. So the fact that it's the future also matters. The fact that it talks about, you know, what happens in the future in this other place matters because it's meant to make readers think about what's going on in our country and our society at present day, and whether or not we're on a path towards that. Not trying to get political here at all, but just saying that writers often set things in the future and have them look differently than now to kind of make you think about where you are now and whether or not our world actually looks the same or doesn't, and whether or not we are on a similar path towards a similar outcome. Okay, so that's an example of time, one of the big elements of setting and in a novel, and why it's important to notice and why it might matter in terms of theme and in terms of plot and other bigger elements going on.